Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other topics, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
I get so many headaches every month.
It could be chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those who have 14 or fewer headache days a month. Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor. Visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix or Light and Fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 6 remix varieties, 3 Epic Complete Protein Oikos remix options, or 3 craveable Light and Fit remix options. See remixyogurt.com.
Anything to shake this mood I'm in.
Back with another episode of Shades of Blue. This one's a little bit different. For one, we're on Zoom and it's just 3 of us, but there's a whole new era starting for sporting now. In case you haven't heard, Peter Vermes and Sporting mutually parted ways, which I never believed they were mutual, but that's life. This is Thad Bell from the KC Soccer Journal. With me, I have Carrie Robinson and Robert Russert. How are y'all tonight?
Doing well. How are you, Thad?
Surviving. How about you, Carrie?
I'm excited for this one.
All right. What's the initial
Because
reaction?
you're not excited for the other ones, Carrie? What?
No, she's really excited for this one. Which
Okay, really excited for this one. Okay,
Really
gotcha.
excited. Okay. So I'm looking at this from 2 ways. I feel like in the last few years, I've been more Peter out than I was this year. And that's because I understood that this was a rebuild. But also I feel like there's always like the fear of you get another coach, exact same stuff happens, which is very likely to happen because of this roster. Not gonna lie, it's not that great at the moment. But there's just something about having another coach come in that's gonna have to like learn all the ropes that Peter's already gonna have. So I'm scared on that aspect. However, I have not seen Sporting KC without Peter Vermes ever. I think I was 9 when Vermes started. So sorry, Thad.
I was already
So,
old when that change happened. So yeah.
so it seems Carrie's already jumped to our second point. But anyway, uh, initial reaction, I think all of us were like a little stunned, right? Because the timing of it, right? It's like, okay, wow, the Cauldron, South Stand thing came out and then it happened, another loss and boom. And just the fact that it was done, right?
Yeah.
We've been clamoring for it. A lot of us have anyway. And then it's happened. And it's like you have that moment. You're like, oh, what? I can't believe it. How about you, Thad? What was yours?
I was pretty surprised that it happened now. I thought it would be at least another 3 or 4 games if it was going to happen. I figured you give them the 10 game span to. I know if you throw the Miami games in there, that's two more, but still, I would have went the 10 games of regular season play because you didn't have a lot of these players for preseason and you didn't have all that, so it felt a little. I know some people will say it's like 2 years too late or 5 years too late, and I know I saw somebody who was like, "Oh, they should have got rid of him after 2013," and I'm like, "Yeah, that was smart." Yeah, I mean, he only won two more Open Cups after that, and some division titles, but yeah, it was terrible coach after that. Anyway, it was a little surprising in that regard. I guess that was a little less surprising because the Cauldron South Stand letter came out, and I do have the conspiracy theory that they were given the go ahead to do that. So, um, because last time they came out with a letter, the person was fired like the next day too, Gavin Wilkinson.
Right, right.
But anyway, I don't know. So yeah, I was a little surprised. I just thought he would get at least a few more games. But I've been at that point before where I start to wonder what's it going to be like when I walk in there, and who's going to be at the podium. And well, now I know Mike Illig and Kerry Zavagnin.
When
Well, it
I
was
got the
funny. Go ahead, Carrie.
when I got the notification, I looked at my phone. I was like, "Is this allowed to happen?" Like, it feels like we're in a different universe almost.
Yeah,
So, Thad, you made the joke that am I going to walk into the conference and it'll be like, gotcha, April Fools. But
yeah.
but I think the
Peter's
most surprising thing for a lot of people was, okay, I thought the owners were apathetic and weren't going to do anything and just going to ride their horse. But wow, they did something. I think that was also part of that first initial reaction. It's like, okay, maybe they have some cojones here.
I think that people will criticize the owners rightly for a lot of things, but it's not like they're not paying attention. It's not like they're not at the games. It's also that they have had a lot of faith in Peter for a lot of years. And could he have still turned around this rebuild and become good? It's very possible. It really is very possible. However, was it too late with the fans? I think that's the real question. Would they have ever come back? Would they have ever felt like it was okay again?
Well, when you're looking at the big picture of Vermes, that's 17 seasons, 16, 4 trophies. So I think that's what kind of pushes ownership to be a little bit more stingy on, making this call, making a few more years because he's had such a good run. And honestly, if you just took out these last few years, like that's much better for the trophy percentage.
Absolutely. What do you think about that, Robert?
Well, you've got to figure in everybody loves the Open Cup. I get it. I get it. I do. Three of those trophies are Open Cup trophies. Great. It was a watered down Open Cup last year. It's been watered down the last couple of years because of all of that's been going on. And I think those Open Cup trophies meant a little more then than they do now because of the way it's formatted. So that's a bit of a consideration, but it's been since 2017. Yes, we did a conference top finish. We were in the Open Cup final last year. So those are all good things. But ultimately, being a home, we even had home field advantage in the playoffs a couple of times and couldn't get any further than we did in the playoffs. So ultimately, I think a season is judged on making the playoffs and going deep into the playoffs. And we've done that very rarely since 2013. So you've got to factor that in as well.
Well, it depends on what you consider deep, but that's, kind of a judgment call there.
Right.
Because I think really until post COVID is when things have really went off the rails. Because there were some years in there where they could have went deeper, they could have done this, had some bad luck here, yada yada yada. But it felt like the team was always like right there, just okay, one more player next year, not hitting double posts, not a Galazzo from midfield from
Yeah.
Portland or whatever. So it always felt like it was right there. But just after 2020, it just started like, is it?
Well, I think part of it also is the Kansas City sports landscape. becoming irrelevant in that landscape with the Chiefs' success. With you could even go back a little bit to the Royals' success, and of course the current. So we've got to remain relevant in our own market, and that was slipping away, I believe.
Well, and MLS even had an uprise of uh, teams come along, expansion teams, which kind of pushed other players, especially in free agency, to go other places than Kansas City, which is something that we were very good at having in the early 2010s.
Yeah, a larger league, cooler places, new stadiums, all that stuff kind of played into a lot of that too. So, because I wrote in the first segment the three things: is the initial reaction, was it too soon, too late, or just right? So, Carrie, too soon, too late, just right.
I would say just right. I was a little afraid that, we go to St. Louis or St. Louis comes to us, we lose, and then maybe it happens. But I did not want St. Louis fans to have that over us forever. That they're the reason that our 17 season manager leaves us. So I was
Yeah.
very surprised. I was hoping that if it didn't happen then or now, then it would happen after that Portland game.
That's a good point, Gary. I like that idea. Yeah, we didn't want to give St. Louis that, but I think it's kind of funny though. The reaction you guys have been on social media, I'm sure, is all right, great. They fire Vermes. All right, what are we gonna do now? Seriously, it's been that kind of reaction. I've been reading a lot. Okay, what do we do now? And that's kind of where we're at. It's like, okay, how do we go forward now? And there's always going to be that question mark, but it's just kind of funny. Those people are so adamant, Burmese out, and now they're like, oh shit, where we go now?
And I think a lot of times people just they want change, but they don't think about what that change will mean in the long run, right? Because that's been one of my reasons not to make the change a couple of years ago was there's going to be so much of unwinding Peter's tendrils throughout the entire organization, which has happened now already some with bringing in Mr. Burns to take over one of those roles and all of that. But it's still you still have that because you have one of his longtime friends who that may not have played any part in him becoming the coach at SKC2. The head of the academy has been somebody who's been around and, Peter chose. It's still there. All the coaches, all the staff, all the placement of trash cans at the training center has all been part of Peter's, DNA of where things go.
Well, I think that's part of it too, though, the stagnation that people, okay, a lot of people say it's more stagnant than it actually has been, but there has been stagnation
Yeah.
in the tactics. You can see it. I know Peter is very good at trying to make sure that the way they train is different and they hear different voices, Carrie or whoever it might be, but still the stagnation is there after 17 years and it's been there for a couple of years. So in that way, too late, um, as far as the stagnation goes and how that dynamic is played out, I think.
I know. And I personally have trouble answering that question myself, too soon, too late, or just right. Because on one hand, the stagnation, but that could have gotten better. I mean, there was some rotation, a new voice in training with Espinoza there as a coach and things like that. And being the link to the younger players, it's hard to think of Roger being a link to younger players. Sorry, Roger. But way more of a link than somebody that's Peter's age or my age. But in that regard, it's a little late. But my fear about the too late is that will the fans come back just because, okay, they made a move, they bring in a new coach. Will the coach be sexy enough that fans will go, oh, I want to be back? Don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a good point. I think the guy that comes in has got to be someone who is not a diametric opposite of Peter, but certainly shows something different than the fans have seen for quite a while. Not just to be different, but different tactics grow with the league the way it is now.
I don't want to jump too much to segment two, but does Kansas City need to bring in a somewhat of a bigger name per se to get the fan base back? Or are we going to go the route of like what we do with players? We just go to the Greek league, pick up some players that no one's ever really heard of.
All right, hold that thought because we're going to come to that. So I know you're jumping ahead. because that's what I want to do, a show rundown where you can't see the second segment just yet. So
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
although I don't want to give Cody ideas. Um, all right. So do we feel that this is a reaction to the Cauldron's letter, the Cauldron and the South Stands letter, or was it that the owners just finally saw enough? I'll let either one of you.
Or
Or
Carrie, was it who was it that was at a retirement party with Illig and
There was there was a
whispering in
big
his ear?
there was a big retirement party, and let's just say Illig was there, and there were some sporting fans, ticket holders that did let Illig know that they were not happy.
I think I wonder too, because I mean, I started to see like more movement of fans wanting to have protests, walkouts, things like that. So I think that may have also, been a part of it before the letter even came out.
Yeah, I was talking to the Cauldron president at the tea float painting, and she was kind of just like brainstorming some other ideas, and she was talking about being silent for 15 minutes, 16 minutes, the amount of seasons Peter's been here.
Well,
So do we
I don't know if I would have noticed a difference. Go ahead, Robert.
So I don't think it I mean, that'd be a knee-jerk reaction if that's what made them make the decision, right? I
Right.
mean, you're not going to base it on that. You're going to base it on what you've seen over time. I think our owners are wise enough to do that and not knee-jerk react. But I think they've seen it reaching ahead, on all facets. We started the season the way we did, the stagnation maybe that they have perhaps perceived as well, the fan reactions, and the fact that just something needs to change, and you don't change for change's sake, but sometimes you really have to hit that line and say, yeah, it feels right now. You don't want the season to go too deep. 10 games, that's almost a third of the season. That's too deep, perhaps.
Yeah, and I mean, other teams have made those moves already. Montreal,
Yeah,
well, that's the only one I remember off the top of my head has made that move already. But some of
right.
them are probably looking at it. And I think the other factor to it is that while it may have been more fair to give him a little more time with it being a new rebuild and spending some money on some players, not a ton, but some, but it's just very similar to last year and the year before. So it's not like it's a new problem. This is one of those questions like every time we were at a presser, we were trying to find some new way to ask the same exact question of if it's just little mistakes, how do you correct those? Oh, we just keep training. Okay, if it's just little mistakes, how do you correct those? And it is like trying to ask the same question every single presser, every single post game, every single availability, but trying to find some different way to like, hey, is there a way to fix these simple little mistakes?
Well, at the end of last season, Peter talked a lot about a change in character or mentality.
Yep.
Did we really see that change, a dramatic difference in the 6 games of this season so far?
What do you think, Gary?
There hasn't really been much. I don't know how else to say this other than like aura. So that's just a term for like vibes
Yeah.
to explain to you guys.
She thinks
This
she thinks we're too old to understand vibes.
no aura. This team just has no aura, and so I think that last year, sure, it was dying out with the older players that left, but we're just not really seeing anything that's special from any of these players.
Yeah. I'll chime in that I think the mentality was a little bit better, but that's also because it was just a new season.
Hmm.
And you have a couple new players in Dayon and Manu and Shoppy the Choppy and all that. So there was a new, at least little bit of a feeling, but the fear is that it was going to be gone so fast that you would never recover.
And we're not implying that the players aren't trying or they're
Right.
not, playing with heart. I think maybe it's a more cohesive unit thing. Is the team as a unit really working together, really have that strong character to, hey, even though we're down a goal, we're still in this, we're going to make this happen. Yeah, we had that one comeback, right? Fortuitous in some aspects, but I don't know if I saw a unified team character really that was next level or anything like that.
All right. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back with segment 2.
There are people out there all across the country pushing boundaries to grow the game of golf. Like champion speed golfer Lauren Cupp, who plays faster than anyone else. And Will Lowry, whose work in the golf community inspires more kids to get into the game. As a champion partner of the Masters, Bank of America supports everyone determined to find out what's possible. In golf and in life. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Bank of America N.A. member FDIC, copyright 2025, Bank of America Corporation, all rights reserved.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from McDonald's, Popeyes, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a hamburger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
All right, segment 2. So the next line on our segment here was, do we let it ride under KZ, carries a Vagnin for a while, or do they try to find somebody quick? What would you do, Robert, if you were Mike Illig and you had Illig money? Would you go find somebody quick? Like out there? I mean, is there somebody out there? I mean, I only know of a couple who might be available, but there's a couple available. What do you do?
Well, it's nice that Kerry's there. We know that Kerry is a sporting guy, right? And the fear is he's too much of a Vermes guy. But, that's okay to have that stability in this transition because you need that, I think. Any interim coach, they have to raise eyebrows early and quick if they want to stay any longer than interim or finish out the season, let's say. So it's going to be up to Kerry and, how the players react to determine that, I think. So if they see something that's going positive and they like what Kerry's doing, I think they might ride that a little bit longer. But if they don't see anything different in the next, 3 matches, then I think they've got to do something pretty quick if they want to save the season and maybe make the playoffs.
So our Kerry, what do you think about Kerry staying or getting a new coach?
I would rather have the new coach from that Kerry has been too close to Vermes for so long. He came in 2009, which is when Peter came in as interim head coach back then too. But it's just one of those things that's like, they've been around each other for so long, what's gonna differentiate what he does versus what Peter's done?
Yeah, that's kind of one of my worries is I know Zavagnin is a smart guy, and he was a really cerebral player when he was playing, and when they've had success, I would contribute a lot of his, knowledge to that success. But he has been there for so long, and I guess there's another question and we really don't know this, and I'll ask it tomorrow, hopefully. Does Zavagnin want to be the head coach?
Right.
He was often rumored to be in contention for jobs those first few years, 2012, 2013, 2014, 15, but then those rumors all died out. And was it because he was never convincing enough that he wanted a job? I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. So I'm speculating. I'm not speculating, but just throwing out wild ideas. What do you think?
Well, the fact that, like you said, he's been early on in his career, at least was considered for some other jobs and didn't get them. I mean, that's something that tells you something. But I don't see him as a long-term solution in any way, simply because of what you guys stated.
So I'm gonna flip this the next two things around, but can there be a new coach bump? I mean, will there be a new coach bump with Carey because he is going to sound very similar to what they've been hearing.
What do you mean by coach bump?
There's almost always a new coach bump when a new coach
Right.
comes in. Like
Oh, okay.
you
Gotcha.
go
Someone
and
else is
yeah.
coming in. Okay.
Yeah, when you go on a couple game win and then it's like, oh, maybe you revert back to just being the same team you were.
Gotcha.
What do you
Well, I
think?
think it depends if he gives some players some, options or some
Difference?
opportunities that maybe they didn't get before. Because you got to have that aspect to it, right? You got to do something different, and everybody feels like they have a new start in a sense. I think with this situation,
Yeah.
but we'll see what's done with that opportunity.
Will there's a possibility that maybe he's thought, hey, this player should be doing something slightly different than what Peter
Hmm.
thought. And
Hmm.
a lot of people will think that Peter, it's always like, oh, Peter's way or the highway, but he did talk to his coaches. He did get their
Sure.
input. And at some point, maybe they didn't always say what they wanted, but maybe they did. But there's a possibility that Zavagnin will say, I wanted this guy on the right wing and not the left wing, and I wanted this guy in the midfield and whatever. Maybe that changes up something, gives some people a little breath of fresh air.
And hopefully injuries work on Carey's side now that we can get Jake in midfield.
Yep.
But
And the two most expensive center backs on the team healthy. I mean, I'm sure that'll contribute a lot, as Robert will point out time after time after
Well, I
time.
think that going back just a little bit, what you're talking about, I think that's also another reason that maybe ownership looked and said these same things keep happening,
Yep.
same kind of errors, same kind of situations. It's just on repeat.
And again, I said that in the first segment, and we'll probably say it about 1,000 more times this year. It was the same errors. It was the same.
Yeah.
They just didn't. He can point to, um, your temperament, your mentality, and all this stuff, but it's still the ball drops in the box and nobody clears it fast enough. Uh, you run back and you leave the top scorer on that team wide open in the box.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Lucho, Messi, guys like that, guys who you just want to leave open because they can't shoot, right?
sometimes there's an own goal in there.
Yes.
Hmm.
So, I will let the own goal slide a little bit, although I will probably forever know Joaquin as the guy who scored an own goal in the first two games with the team. But so
So
yeah,
do you so do you guys think that ownership has been thinking about this for a while and maybe they have a list of guys they want to look at and they've been doing that, or is just or no? What do you guys think?
I would like to think yes, that they've been thinking about this for a while. I would like to think so. Because in, last year they had the MLS broadcast documentary come out, just the one short episode, and Vermes talked about how he was in the hot seat and how he told ownership that he was fine or he understands if it was his time to go. So you gotta think that at some point they've already been thinking about this at least a year ago, half a year ago, something like that, and that those thoughts are coming back into play for them.
I'm sure those thoughts are coming back in, but there's those same coaches that they may have looked at last year aren't there. They're,
Right.
that's pretty rare that a coach would be sitting idle that would be worthwhile to pick up for a year. However, you guys got any suggestions?
So I don't have any particular names. I would need more time to do a little bit of research on that. But it needs to be someone, if you look at who's, in head coaching and doing well, you've got Cherundolo, you've got Chris Armas, who is up and down a little bit, but he's got a fairly good record. Greg Vanny. This is of a generation that's kind of the generation just after Vermees with some fresh ideas. Um, so that's an option somewhere in that area. Jim Curtin fits that, but I don't think Curtin's going to come because of something I was going to mention later, I'm sure. But because Mike Kuhn mentioned it earlier in our Slack. but it's got to be somebody who comes in with an understanding of what MLS is now and a different point of view on the type of player that we need to come in to compete in MLS. Because I think that was part of Peter's issue, was that he was so much locked into the I need a guy who's going to work hard. I need a guy who's going to, press and do this. I need a guy who's going to do that. When those are important, yes, but there needs to be other qualities that these players need to have to compete in today's MLS.
Carrie, do you think a new coach needs to know MLS, or do they just need to be a good coach that could have maybe coached in England or Brazil or Spain or Greece?
I think that MLS is a monster by itself with, the travel days and stuff like that. But I don't necessarily think that is the number one priority that they have MLS experience. Um, Although I don't know, maybe some type of playoff experience would be nice. I know there's not really much of that outside the US, but just so they're not here and a little confused when MLS changes it up every year.
Well, I guess the question in that sense is, okay, are you looking to come in and make the playoffs? If so, you need someone who's familiar with how MLS works on the acquisition side, roster size, and all the travel, like you said, Carrie, all those aspects. If that's your goal, is to make the playoffs. If you're looking longer term, then maybe you don't look that way.
Well, there were people in our Slack talking about how this is just a washed year already. Do you guys think like that? Do you guys think that?
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
Um, but I'm also optimist at times. So I do realize how hard it can be and all this stuff. So I like to think of myself as a realistic optimist, but I'm still an optimist. Can something change? One thing could change and the team will play better. And then they don't have to be great right now. They don't have to be great. They just have to play better and start earning points at home, especially, but start earning points. And then in the summer window, maybe Mr. Burns does an excellent move and goes and gets somebody. And it might be that one player then takes them into the playoffs. I'm not expecting. I wasn't expecting this year, even with all optimistic hopes, that they were going to go to the MLS Cup. That's, to me, it was unrealistic because it was a rebuild. You're still trying to find guys. You don't have all the guys you need, and you have weaknesses in 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 spots, whatever the number is. But you could still make the playoffs. You still could have some fun with it. But they still could.
So early on, Carrie, you implied that just this roster, no matter who the new coach is, isn't going to get it done. Correct? Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I really do. I just feel like again, it's the little mistakes and it all goes back to the little things and it's like how many more little errors are we gonna have with this team? Like it's either gonna click or it's not. And I don't know when it's gonna click.
It may never
I
click.
was yeah. I mean, I was looking at the schedule for the next few months and it was kind of hard to see where we're gonna be picking up points at this moment. I was more optimistic about Dallas, but I didn't watch the game. I was at the current game, and I'm glad I didn't check in at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, well, I don't want to say I checked in, but somebody behind me, I hear him go, "Hey, Sporting scored." So I did pull up my phone and pull up FootMob and set it on my leg while I'm shooting, and then I hear, "Oh," and I went, "Okay, I know what happened," and I just went right to our Slack and went deja vu. So I didn't even look at the score until after I posted that, and I was so right. Uh, so I will just throw this out there: new voice can change people. Maybe a new formation, a new tactic, not going as wide, trying to cross into nowhere, those kind of things. I don't think that they have a great lineup for any specific tactic at the moment, but maybe just being a much more, I don't want to say low block bunkering team, but maybe much more of a mid block team that is close enough they can counter, but is a little more compact to help each other out. Maybe some moving some guys around. I don't know, but it could help.
If we're talking about what we want in coaches, I don't know who I want, of course. But I know what I don't want, and I don't want someone that has been tied to Sporting in the past, either as a player, as a previous coach. I feel like we all know that U.S. soccer is pretty incestuous, to say. Um, everyone just knows everyone, and
They do.
yes, I feel like Sporting Kansas City is turning that way, and it might be because Vermes has been around for so long. But we also have, Roger Espinosa on the bench coaching. We had Benny. We just have a bunch of former players that have been under Vermes for most of their career coming up and coaching. And I don't want someone whose name is on the wall to be coaching this team. Sorry, Jimmy Conrad.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit, knowing Benny and his personality, from just seeing him at training and just knowing him as a person. I don't think he's a Vermes disciple. I think he's a Benny Feilhaber independent thinker who can change things. So Benny in that way I'd be fine with Benny Feilhaber. Otherwise, anybody else, Carrie, I agree with you, but I think Benny does not fit that mold, really.
I don't know that a lot of the players who have become coaches are necessarily Vermes disciples, as in follow the same tactics. Naga was different when he went to Houston. Jimmy was different when he played, when he coached at OKC. And, some of those other guys, I don't know that they've done the same thing that Vermes would have done. They have some of that DNA in them, of course, but yeah, I think Benny would be the most different just because he's Benny, and I still laugh when I saw him, yell at somebody for not getting back on defense. But he would be an option.
It's just one of those things that I want. If we're going this far, I want change and I want a new person completely.
I want change. When do I want it? Now.
But I mean, if you're saying that, Carrie, I get you, I understand, but where in world football are we going to find that person right now? Because, I don't know.
See, this is a moment where I think they may have missed with naming Carey as the interim. I might have went and got Benny as the interim. Give him the rest of the year.
What are the relationships with Benny? Do you have any insight on that? How did things go? Do they go in an amicable break, or is it? Do you know?
Well, I think he likes beating this team, so I think he would like to coach this team. And I will say that we need to fill in for David Greenwald, who would absolutely campaign for Benny Feilhaber getting the job.
Yep.
So
Benny,
a bit of a bromance there. I don't know.
After the U.S. Open Cup, Benny had a player under his arm talking him through every single play he was out there. So
he is he's a natural coach in that he will talk to you the entire time. He's also a natural card attractor because he will talk to you the entire time, including the refs. But no, I like Benny. I think if any of those former guys were it, but I would also just say Benny could come in as an interim, not as a contract as a head coach, if that makes sense.
Just give him a shot, see what he can do. Is that what you mean? Or
yeah, because I mean, because I'll play devil's advocate. You know me. When people are advocating for him, I'm like, because he's really a proven head coach material right now. Well, no, because SKC2 was okay to mediocre to bad at times under him, but a lot of that's not his fault.
I do have one coach that I don't really care for maybe his tactics or the fact that he brought in like my least favorite Sporting Kansas City player up to the Whitecaps, but Vanni Sartini would be a fun coach to have, especially, going into St. Louis. Hypothetically, if we could just pin drop a coach, we would get some amazing quotes out of that man.
Oh yeah, that would be one of the fun parts of it. All right, we're going to need to go to segment 2 here, or segment 3 rather, so we will be back in a moment.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse April 3rd, only on Netflix.
So good, so good, so good.
Just in and so good. Thousands of spring finds up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of fresh reasons to rack.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Vince, Calvin Klein, Rag & Bone?
Obsessed.
Why do we rack? For the hottest deals.
Save on Madewell, Kate Spade New York, Sam Edelman, Joe's, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Back for segment 3. I was running out of time on Zoom, so I had to finish it up. But are there other coaches out there who might be good solutions or that Sporting might be interested in? Like, I don't know, a really successful guy across town?
I don't know, Thad. Who?
Well, I did have a very reliable source tell me that somebody from Sporting had inquired to the Current about Vlatko Andonovski. Now, what that response was from the Current, I do not know, and exactly who did it, I do not know. But I actually had 2 different people tell me this, so I have quite good confidence, despite the fact that Sporting has denied it ever happened. So that's...
I can hear yeah, right, sure, no way, laughter in the background from the Current person.
I want to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, I know. It would be very interesting. And I mean, I know at one point Vlatko was considering going over to coach. I mean, he's coached men in indoor and stuff like that. And I know there was a point where he was considering like going to USL just to work his way back up to MLS and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, he's got a pretty good gig at this point. And the Current owners spend well for NWSL owners. I don't know that he would get a comparable spend if he was an MLS coach. But it might be a good challenge.
Maybe he just introduces Sporting to Africa. Maybe like points it out on the map.
Yeah, because Vlatko's definitely found that, hasn't he?
Yes.
All right, so I think almost everybody has agreed that Peter was on a hot seat, needed to go, whether it was now, 2 years ago, 12 years ago, or maybe in a couple more games. He does leave a really lasting legacy of what he's accomplished in this city. So just, I don't know, like, I know, Carrie, you haven't been around as long or paying attention as much. So he's your only coach. He's like your only guy that's ever been coaching for you. What does that legacy mean for you?
I think, I mean, even just knowing the history of, Sporting and MLS and the foundation that Sporting's really set, especially in like, I'll call it MLS 2.0 at the time. It really all came down to him. And, we became soccer capital of America because of all the efforts and ways that he pushed forward for Sporting. And it really all just centered around him. So bittersweet, whatever you think about the memories.
Yep.
Current memories, maybe not.
Pun intended? No. Robert, what do you think?
Well, I mean, Peter, for a period, was everything you want in a coach. Not just as a coach, but he was in charge of just about everything. And the impetus for many of those things, the stadium build, and he had a large voice in, I'm sure. Building up the academy, tactics. He was everything. He deserves to be on that board as a player and a coach. And he's a hell of a guy. He really is. I really admire the guy as an individual, as a human being. He's funny. He's a great guy. But it just came to that time, and everybody in this what's the word I'm looking for? Excuse me.
The sport.
All of a sudden, in this career, there's a time where it just comes to an end. That's just the way it is. It's the nature of it. So he had his moments for sure. And well done, Peter. We wouldn't be the same without you.
And I know he and I have talked before about, the fact is almost no coaches just walk away happy on a winning note, right? I mean,
Right.
it very, very, very rarely happens. Sir Alex Ferguson is one I always go to, and I know there's ones in other sports and stuff like that. And he could, get a chip on his shoulder and go somewhere else and try to coach against us. But I would hate to see that, just because I would love for him to be the one club guy,
Well,
It
as
in a
a
really,
difference.
sense, Peter took a club at that moment that he took over that was really not in that good of shape,
Was about
you
to
know?
move.
Yeah, and turned it into what it became. So, that's kind of what we need now, isn't it? But
Yep.
that's tough to get. So, whoever gets this job next has a big chore in front of them.
Carrie, can somebody come in and be that be all person anymore? Even, half of what Peter was to the club?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I
Again,
don't
just,
either.
what he's done for this club, this city, MLS also. Um, I mean, you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself be the villain. And unfortunately, it's kind of gotten to that point. But he was a hero
He was.
in the sense.
A lot of those people who were calling for him to be, uh, let go for a while now, have also today turned around and, while they might be a little shell shocked, oh, what do we do now? But a lot of them have also been saying, hey, we really respect what he's done. They just wanted him gone. But I think he deserves a lot of respect for what he did for this club and the city, because even in some respects, you may not have the current here if he hadn't built up soccer in this city. I mean, again, I don't want to sound like he single-handedly did this, right?
Right,
Owners
right.
invested money, lots of people were coaches, lots of people, players, and lots of people have been involved in building up soccer in Kansas City. I mean, I think everybody that writes here has helped in doing it a little bit, but he was a really key part of a lot of that. So we might not have the current here if the investors hadn't went, hey, this is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, he set a standard, and I think that the standard that all coaches that come in are going to look at and say, I want to be as successful as he was. So
Yep.
that's another part of the legacy as well.
He's already up on that wall. What do we do to honor him? Because I do think, a statue outside a stand named after him. I don't know. What else? Anything?
It could be that section of like the standing only in the Cauldron, that he had to come over and talk to the people about throwing things on the field, where he just came over and yelled at them. Peter's corner.
There you go.
Yeah. So I was trying to like come up with some good alliteration, and I was really failing on that. But um, Vermees's foul mouth section. No, wait. And again,
Peter's,
people see him yelling at refs and reacting, overreacting sometimes. But he really was a very nice guy when you sat down and talked to him.
Thad, you've been around Peter, gosh, I don't even know how long, to be honest with you. Since when?
Well, I guess it would have been '08, I
Yeah.
think. But
So do you have a favorite Peter moment or just some moments that stand out to you?
I don't know. There's quite a few, quite honestly. I mean, one of them just happened at the last Open Cup. When
Yeah.
I told on the pod about how he came and stood on the ambulance right behind me. I was actually searching for a photo and I could not find it. And I'm mad at myself. I couldn't find it yet. Um, but I have a lot of galleries to go through sometimes. But it was just a shot of him sitting on a ball at practice, like when he was still just the GM. And I think one of my first interviews was Peter, because I was a nobody, and they said, I said, "Hey, can I do an interview?" And they're like, "Yeah, but not anybody that's a starter." They go, "So like, some of the rookies, or you can talk to the GM, And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I've heard of this guy." I mean, I knew who Peter was, right? So like, I started interviewing him, and I got a really amazing interview. Except he was like, what should you have asked me? I'm like, I don't know. What should I have asked you? He's like, oh, I'm not telling you, but you'll find out soon enough. And that was one of those where he had actually been the Galaxy had wanted to see if he would come over there and be part of the Galaxy and take over. So that was one of those moments I like always try to like keep asking questions until you never know what, right? Yeah, and what's a little bit I don't know, irony, there's the right word, probably not, but at the last practice on Friday, they had the presser, and then we can go watch a little bit of practice, and they've been doing it from the balcony because they've been practicing right in the close to it, so it's just easier to step out there. But Peter and uh, Rosero and oh man, who else? They were um, Roger was just playing a juggling game, right? So 1, 2, 3. I don't know if you ever played it, but like you chip the ball to the next player and you say 1, 2, or 3, and they have to touch it 1, 2, or 3 times before passing it. But you say it like in midair, so
Uh,
they don't have a lot of time to react sometimes. And he was having fun, he was laughing, and he was saying it in Spanish to Rosero. And when they called Jake over, and so it became a four people playing, he was like saying it in English to Jake and Spanish to Rosero and Spanish to Roger, and it was fun to watch. And it was like one of those, like, you can see this moment and you're like, okay, these guys are still pretty loose. All the worries about all the too much weight on on having lost and all these things, they were really loose, they were laughing, they were having fun. There was the other groups were doing that stuff, and then Dallas happens, and then he's gone today.
so I don't think Peter will be listening to us. Maybe. I highly doubt it. But anyway, he was always willing every time we had a media day to come and sit down with us and do record a pod with us. So
Yep.
definitely thankful. He was always pretty forthright and honest with things. Sometimes called us out when we asked dumb questions, which
Oh
is,
yeah.
good. But one of my favorite memories is, and there are many, but I have to be selfish here. So I don't know what radio show he was on, and a friend of me friend of mine told me about this. He was like before one of the media games, and the guy asked him, "So, so who stands out on the media teams for you? Who do you think's one of the best players out there?" And he mentioned me, so I will never forget that. So,
It's probably because he only knew your name that would be out there.
hey, Thad, come on, man,
You stood out more, so that's why.
let me have my moment. Right, right.
Any other moments like maybe stand out for you, Carrie? I know you didn't have to deal with him, or didn't get to deal with him. I shouldn't say had to get to deal with him as much as some of the rest of us.
No, I don't really think I had any interactions, at least not that I can remember, other than at the U.S. Open Cup game against Des Moines. Um, Even he was just standing up in like one of the corners of bleachers, and I thought I saw him, but he had his hood up, and I could only really see his nose. But he glared at, well, he just kind of looked at me, but it felt like a glare, and I'm sure that he didn't really mean it, but I felt like he was just staring into my soul. And I was like, no, yep, that's Peter.
Yep. He had that ability, and I don't know how many people I've seen him ask what may not have been the most intelligent question, and he would just straight up answer it as well as he could, and sometimes he would like, no, this is, he'd just look at them like, why? And then he would usually still try to answer it as well as he could, but he also didn't suffer people trying to lead him into things either. Why didn't you sub more? And yeah, he might have chewed a few people out for that. And people also sometimes criticized him for, saying the same things in pressers and stuff, but he was a lot of times trying to protect his players, not throw them under the bus. But when he did throw somebody under the bus, it was to send a clear message to that player and perhaps other players. So I remember doing an interview one time, and he like said something very pointed about a player,
Yeah.
and afterwards I was like, are you sure you want that said? You want me to quote you on that? Because I figured to be fair, maybe he misspoke or something. He goes, no, I want that to be out there. Now the next after the next game in the locker room, I was not very popular because players had actually read what I'd written, which was just what Peter said. It wasn't me, but oh well. I will
Well,
miss him though.
Peter is a pretty wise guy as far as how he let the players, have a control of the locker room. He had a leadership group that, Graham Zuzi would talk about how it's a group of, 5, 6 guys who are really kind of leading the team in that way. And Peter's smart enough to let that happen, let them be liaisons for the other players and things like that. So Peter did a lot of great stuff. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. Just perhaps the message just got too stale. Same message, same players for too long. Not enough innovation. But if he goes somewhere else, I have faith that he'll actually do pretty well.
Is
All right.
there a is there a team that you think that would benefit immediately? Like just from the players they have, the style that they already play.
Des Moines. I think Des Moines. No, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question because right now I don't know who would be shopping for a coach besides Montreal, right?
Mhm.
I don't think they've hired a new coach in the last week or two. So that's
I
a good question.
personally think that Peter would do best in a situation where he is what he wants to be is just the coach. I think somebody else should be in charge, majorly in charge of player selection, how they formulate the roster. Of course, there has to be some coordination, but Peter's not a bad coach. He's a good coach.
He is a good
I
coach.
think it's the other part of the job where was his real failure.
Yeah, and it might if he goes someplace, maybe just it would be good for him because he would have to learn new players, and experiment with them and not have them pigeonholed in his mind of what they would or wouldn't do, or
Yeah.
maybe he would have to, play a different tactic because he knew he didn't have the players or something. I don't know. But all I know is I really wish him well, and I will look forward to whatever new coach comes in and learning what they do and how they change up things. And it's like every year, because I know Peter always like kind of made fun of us a little bit, because every year it's like, oh, they just signed a new player. There was a left back from Bolivia or something, and we'd be like, oh, who's this guy? What's his skills and da da da. Because it's like exciting. It's like opening a present on Christmas. Same thing with the current. And when they bring in a new player, oh, how good is this player going to be? What's their skills? It'll be kind of the same with having a new coach. We haven't had that for a while.
So in our segment 3 rundown, Thad, you put some stats, league play, Peter's record in league play. I assume you got this from Mike. I don't know, but anyway.
Yeah, Mike stat. I don't do that as well as Cody.
203 wins, 184 losses, 123 draws. You look at that, that's 19 games over 500. That's not terribly impressive. Of course, it's slanted, by the last couple of years, but
yeah,
the win that's not terribly impressive, to be honest with you. But if you want to look at overall, I think a really good look at Peter's legacy, and some people hate Matt Doyle from MLSsoccer.com because they think he's anti-sporting, which he's not. But Matt and I have been talking a little bit back and forth on Twitter. I really think he had a great article about Peter and what Peter's legacy is, not only here in Kansas City, but across the league. So check that out if you have time and you're interested in seeing that. So
cool. I'll play Cody and say, you got anything prophetic to say, Carrie?
Not this again. I already said mine. It was something you live to be a hero, die to be a villain, something like that.
You got to save those. I know. And I hate it sometimes when Cody does that to me, but I got the chance. Should I turn it on Robert?
Yes.
Hey, we're on the cusp of a new era, guys. It's exciting, isn't it? I mean, come on, aren't we excited about this? What's going to happen? It's going to be very interesting, no doubt about how it turns out, but it's exciting. I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen with this franchise because we got a lot going for us here. Any coach who comes in has got to say, hey, this is a city that's going to host 6 World Cup games next summer. This is a city that's got a lot of great things going on, and we want to live up to that.
How much does coaching an MLS team matter that there's going to be World Cup games in the same city? I mean,
Well,
seriously?
It's a feel though. It's
It's an
this city's got some energy here that we can use.
When you've been around for since the 2000s, you play here as a coach, you play here as a player, and then you coach. And I mean, it's got to be exciting. It all being in your hometown, especially with you kind of at the forefront of what people are going to see.
All right. So Anybody want to do the Cody sporting thing?
Sporting!
Saturday and the game is on. 10 minutes in, it's 3-0. I'm sipping back an empty can. I don't give a damn if it's 9 a.m. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. The other side don't seem so tough, and 3 own goals ain't all that rough. Our skipper has just been sent off. Supporters strong have all gone soft. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this